It's still going around and around in circles.
Okay.
62, my father.
Okay, count to 5 and go.
Thank you. It's the part, the money.
Okay, on my way back.
Yeah, you.
Well, the positive thing that my mother, I was with her, she said, you need to quit smoking because when my dad died, he was a firefighter. I said, maybe if you get off my butt, I'll quit smoking. She never said another word, and I never smoked another cigarette.
Cold turkey.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I don't think I was really addicted because one day I'd smoke Newports, one day I'd smoke Lucky Strike. You know?
Oh my gosh, that's extreme menthol. It's on,
I wouldn't
no
know,
filter.
Yeah.
but we'll get this moved because I know Ed has a commitment at 10. We will call this meeting of the Lawrence County Board of Elections to order. Susan, please call the roll.
Mr. Boyd.
Here.
Mr. Vogler.
Here.
Ms. Stillvogel.
Here,
We have a quorum. I will note that we are being recorded both internally for our use in compiling minutes and externally, which is being broadcast to YouTube for public consumption, either live or later on. I'll also note that we've scheduled a series of these every Tuesday leading up to the election and Monday preceding the election, with the goal of ironing out as many bumps as we possibly can for the 2020 general election, just because I know our elections office is working overtime literally to make sure that the election occurs in a reasonable, safe, secure manner. And we want to make sure that we have them backed up on our end, and that, we're making all the decisions that we can in the public eye, that issues are resolved before they become issues. And I just think it's good practice generally to have these weekly leading up and the month leading up to an election. On that note, I'll give my colleagues a minute to look over the minutes. Oh, correction, I'll give public comment. And does any member of the public wish to address the board, Dick?
Not right now, thank you.
No problem. And we'll circle back around at the end if you have anything.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. But on that note, I will give my colleagues a minute to look over the minutes from the June 18th, 2020 election board meeting. There's so many damn boards.
Is it June 18 or June 8?
June 8.
Thank you. So we need to correct the
Right.
agenda. Okay, so it's
it's
June 8.
correct on the minutes themselves.
I'll move for the adoption of the June 8 minutes as submitted.
And I will second.
Your motion is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Question on the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. First item on the agenda today under new business for consideration is the consideration of drop boxes. I'll note that with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision recently, Pennsylvania counties are allowed to implement drop box locations for mail-in absentee ballots across the county. I'll also note that I did a little bit of research on this. A lot of
It's
research on this.
surprising,
But 38 states and DC right now have drop boxes. Across the Commonwealth, just some of the counties that currently have them implemented are Allegheny County, which has 8, Bucks County, which has 3, Lehigh County has 5, Monroe County has 5, Northampton County has 5. Other counties across the Commonwealth are deploying them right now. And in my research, I could not find a single incident where a drop box in Pennsylvania or anywhere else in the country was compromised in any way. I did come across incidents where individuals tried to ram their cars into drop boxes in an effort to destroy those ballots. In those instances, the cars were damaged, the drop boxes, and the ballots were not. But I think the proposal right now would be to talk about some of the issues that we might face relating to drop box usage, potentially either find workarounds, solutions, or just generally deliberate the benefits and drawbacks of deploying 2 or 3 drop boxes around Lawrence County. But I'll open the floor up to any comments that my colleagues might have. I don't think today is the day at which we would approve them or deny them. I think today is just the day that we try to look at the facts or consider what information we might not have in front of us, investigate in the following week, and then make a final determination as to whether or not we deploy drop boxes next week. But with that being said, I'll open the floor to either of my colleagues or Director Allison for any comments.
I'd like to know what Mr. Allison recommends to this board.
I will carry forth the wishes of the Board of Election, number one. Number two, I have my reservations about other sections of the code. However, if the Supreme Court basically says that they're permitted, then they're permitted. A limited usage in the county north and south is probably not unreasonable. I would caution the board, though, that we're still going to have to work at lead times, especially with various states that are making their orders, various counties that you've already noted, putting in orders. I don't know that I would wait till next week in order to do that. If they're located in magisterial district offices, security is a minor issue at that point. I believe they all have cameras. They all have, it would be located inside their office in some way, or in some fashion. Picking up ballots and the time frame by which we do that. Obviously, we have really no idea or no history as to just how well they would be used. I wouldn't suggest any less than probably 3 pickups a week. But other than that, it's up to the will of the board.
And I would say that, my proposal would be to deploy a drop box, because you figure you already have a drop-off location in the center of the county, that being the elections office.
Right.
My proposal would be, and this would just be effectively providing voters with another option through which they can exercise their right to vote, in addition to voting at the polls, voting through the United States Postal Service in mail, or dropping their ballots off directly at the election office. This is just simply, in my mind, a fourth option. And so, my proposal would be to put drop boxes, and I think I still would like to take a week. I'd say order the drop boxes, because again, you're right, you're dealing with lead times, and then deliberate finally next week for deployment. But I would say put one at District Justice Cartwright's office in the southern portion of the county, and one in District Justice Russo's office in the northern part of the county. And those areas are, I would propose those areas solely on the basis of their population centers in Lawrence County and their county operated facilities in which those drop boxes would be located. I'm not proposing in any way, shape, or form having them out in the open where they would be exposed to the elements or exposed to individuals trying to ram their cars into them. Or in addition to that, I would also propose that those drop boxes only be open in the hours in which those magisterial district offices are open. And that would effectively be my proposal.
Are you making that a motion or just something to talk about?
Just something to talk about for right now.
Have you discussed this with either the court administrator or the 2 district justices to see if they are willing to have these boxes within their offices?
No, I haven't, and that ties into, I'd like to approve
That
the
wait,
purchasing
right,
of
that
the
wait
boxes right now
period.
to meet that lead time, but I'd also like the opportunity to go to President Judge Motto, Judge Russo, and Judge Cartwright to see what their opinions are of using their
I would
facilities for
be
that
agreeable
purpose.
to that, yes, definitely.
Do you feel that by putting a box in the borough of Elwood City and a box in Neshannock Township gives those voters in those 2 municipalities an advantage over voters in all of the other townships and boroughs throughout the county, particularly ones that are in the far outlying areas such as Pulaski Township or Little Beaver Township or Perry Township or Plain Grove Township, whereby a voter in Neshannock Township can drive 3 minutes to drop off their ballot. For a voter in Plain Grove Township, it's going to take them maybe 20, 25 minutes to do that. Is that fair?
Well, and my argument to that would be right now we have one drop-off location in Lawrence County, that is the Lawrence County Courthouse. And so, you could make the argument that individuals in the city of Newcastle have a greater advantage over voters in the rest of the county relating to dropping their ballots off at the one location in the county that permits it. And you could further make the argument that individuals on the Lower East Side of Newcastle who can simply walk to the courthouse to drop their ballot off, by nature of their location, have a greater ability to cast their vote via drop-off site than individuals located in Mahoning Town. What I'm proposing isn't a perfect solution, right? In an ideal world, there'd be a drop box at everybody's house, or the elections office would go around to every single voter and collect their ballot, which I'm not in any way, shape, or form proposing. But at the same time, I think in deploying these two boxes, you are providing voters with another option that they might not already have. You're taking a situation that we're in currently and making it better. Let's not overshoot better by aiming for best.
Difference between this central location is it's here and it has to be here. Drop boxes are essentially an option that are now, as Mr. Allison noted, allowed by the Supreme Court, not ordered, not directed by the Supreme Court. And as Mr. Allison noted, the election code itself is silent. I don't know that the word drop box is used in the election code. Is it, Mr. Allison, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, it is not. However, there is a section of the code that allows counties to implement measures in natural disasters or extreme circumstances to step beyond in order to facilitate a meaningful and accurate election. That being the case, that's really the only stipulation in the code that would go from there outside of the Supreme Court order. Once that order is made, it'll get published along with some section in the code, more than likely the one that with regard to natural disasters, especially during this pandemic issue, would probably be noted on a permanent basis in that particular section. So understanding and knowing how all that business works, once the Supreme Court said that you're allowed, eventually it's going to, unless the legislature comes in and says, no, we're not going to do that, we're not going to do it anywhere in the state. And I don't think they're going to at this point, given the Supreme Court ruling. Unless the legislature makes that move, everyone will have the availability of drop boxes.
And I'd also like to, add that the purpose here is not to do away with in-person voting or limit a voter's ability to vote by mail. It's something to provide voters with another option through which to exercise their right to vote. And I also note that even though, my proposal would not deploy ballot drop boxes in Perry Township or Pulaski Township, just by virtue of there not being a county-operated facility there, but that those voters would still be in a better position if we were to deploy boxes in at Judge Russo's office and Judge Cartwright's office, based on the idea right now that if we don't do that, and those voters wish to drop their ballot off as opposed to using the United States Postal Service, they would have to drive to the courthouse as opposed to simply driving to Elwood or Neshannock. So across the board, I think everyone benefits in some way from this. Some benefit more than others just by virtue of their proximity to the sites. But at the end of the day, all boats are rising if this is implemented.
Is there some reason why you're not including Judge Nicholson's office out in North Beaver Township?
I would be more than open to bringing on a third drop box
Absolutely.
in that site. The only reason why I didn't include it with what I initially stated was simply because it's not in the middle of a population core. It's the site that was selected was in a less dense area of the county on Route 18.
People in less dense areas, do their votes not mean as much as voters in more dense areas?
No, I would just say
I would
that
propose to get one in Judge Nicholson's office as well.
there we go. And
Yeah,
I'm okay with that, absolutely. But to answer that question, the answer is absolutely not. But at the same time, we have to balance at some level fairness with efficiency. But I'm more than open, and I would vote in favor of deploying a drop box in Judge Nicholson's office. Again, that being a county operated facility.
The other thing I would ask, and I appreciate the research that you did, and you cited probably 7 or 8 or 9 counties. I'd be curious to know what the other 60 counties in the Commonwealth are doing.
Sure, and there's a list available. I don't have it up right now, but there's a list available on the State Department's website that shows all of the Dropbox locations across the Commonwealth, with the exception of Dropbox locations in the city of Philadelphia. Well, Mr. Allison, I heard you say you'll respect the wishes of the board.
Yes, sir, that's my job.
So you're not making a recommendation one way or the other.
Again, I'll follow whatever the board wants to do. It adds another variable to our process. I have, since I've never implemented, I don't know what kind of time or who's going to be responsible at this point for pickup. But I'm sure that all those details can be worked out. It's just a matter of additional time.
And I'm proposing that, and I'll make this in the form of a motion. I'll move to direct the elections office to purchase 3 drop boxes with the idea throughout the course of the next week, we will put together a plan for the collection of those ballots that will be deposited in those drop boxes, that we will solidify with the judiciary that's already for them to use those sites, that those sites are indeed secured with cameras to make sure that in the off chance that something happens, and again, my research shows that there has never been an incident related to drop boxes and the collection of ballots therein. But to make sure that those sites are secured with cameras, as well as potentially coordinate with the sheriff's department for the pickup of ballots at those sites, and the amount of times per week, per month, and the frequency at which ballots are collected from those locations. And Ed, I would agree with you, at minimum, absolutely 3 times, because that adds another layer of security.
We will have to establish a chain of command between the district justice office, whoever's picking up, bringing back, making sure that the same account get going into that vehicle, the same account that we get back here, and so forth and so on. So again, it isn't anything that we've done before, but I've had a lot of things tossed at me that we've never done before.
Yeah, this election is
And
far
you're
from
doing
perfect.
quite well with handling everything. Yes, without a doubt. I would actually propose, if I could, because you did propose in the form of a motion purchasing 3, might I suggest purchasing 4? Because we are, one case away from a shutdown like earlier that we had for our June election
In relation to COVID.
in relation to COVID. I mean, there's a degree of safety that we have to take into consideration with people coming in and out of the courthouse, that we may end up with a shutdown, a bare bones minimum staffing, and we did have a drop box in the courthouse, in the, what we call the portico, that area, the foyer, thank you, for people to be able to drop their ballots off. And also with the deconstruction of the courtyard going on and happening, I would, maybe suggest that we have that 4th one there as well in the event, that people want to just pull up, that we don't have a line out there keeping social distance and things. Just to have it on the ready in case that we would need it for here. If the intent, as the Supreme Court said, was to have as many people vote as safely and conveniently as possible to increase voting as the right that people do have, that I think we need to do that for our voters of Lawrence County, to do that. And I'm in agreement with the drop boxes, with the placements, with the discussions to have during the week to secure those drop boxes and places that are secure, and that we get them to our voter services securely.
So in other words, are you proposing an amendment to the motion which would increase the number of to 4?
Mhm. Yes,
All right, so can I have that in the form of a motion, just to do Robert's rules?
absolutely. I propose an amendment to the motion. Instead of 3 drop boxes being purchased, the addition of 1 more, which would bring that total to 4 drop boxes to be purchased by the county.
I will second that for the purposes of discussion. Only question to Ed would be, Ed, what's the cost on a drop box?
The 3, if they're still available from U.S. Mail Equipment, delivered, it was $23.25. So you're a little under $800 a piece.
Actually, that's a lot better than I thought it was gonna be.
Are these boxes physically attached to the floor, or can someone come in and pick them up and walk away with them? Or do they weigh too much?
These ones are gonna weigh too much. They look like, let's say, a military version of the old mail drop box, where you open the flap, throw it in, and close it back up. They're made so that they can withstand the weather, they can withstand a beating, they can, whatever. If I may, we've taken, and Susan can bear this out, we've taken as many calls from individuals who want to know what to do with their ballot because now they've decided they want to go to the poll and vote in person. As we have individuals calling to say, where is my ballot? This is, what the legislature has done is just extremely difficult in order to administer. Personally, everybody should just go to the polls because the judge of election probably knows 80% of those individuals who vote on a routine basis. But again, I don't get what I want. I do with whatever the legislature states. So personally, I'm not in favor of mail-in ballots. I'm not in favor of drop boxes. Go to the poll. That's my personal opinion. As the director in that office, I run the office according to the law. I run it according to the wishes of the Board of Elections. And at that particular point, if four drop boxes are purchased, the fourth one will not be implemented in this building unless we do have a shutdown. Is that my understanding?
I don't know.
I think what I understood what you were saying, and I could have misinterpreted it, but was just to have it out front in the event that individuals did not want to come into the building. Individuals locating in the center portion of the county,
Right.
didn't want to come to the building, for fear of COVID-19. They were just able to drop off the ballot.
I think that was very effective for the primary.
But only because they weren't, well, we only implemented for probably a
Right.
week.
Right.
We may have picked up maybe 200 ballots in a week's time.
Okay.
As long as the courthouse is open and my office is functioning, they need to come to my office. I do not want to have someone walk in and say, I just saw somebody drop 6 ballots in the drop box. You can take it to the post office, there's nothing I can do about
Right.
that.
Sure.
So,
Understandable.
I
Did
would-
you have that
I would-
happen at all during the primary? Was there any
We know
concerns,
we-
anything like that?
Yeah, her husband would bring his wife, him and his wife, or with families or whatever the case may be. Because they did ask the deputy, I mean, they had no idea who the individuals were.
Right.
But yes, on several occasions, they witnessed where individuals had dropped off more than one ballot. And if you're going to do that in this facility, you need to do it over in the office, and you'll only drop off when you want, unless you have an affidavit from a disabled person that gives them the authority to bring it in.
Mhm. That's fine. That's fine.
I would certainly prefer that.
And we can cross that bridge when we come to it. I think getting them ordered for now is the discussion
That's fine.
that we're having, and
Throw
we
it out
can
there
move forward from there.
general discussion for
Sure.
motion.
Sure. Any further comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Two questions. First question, is the motion applicable only to this election, or is this something you intend to be permanent, a fixture, so to speak, in next year's election?
My motion was applicable only to this election.
I'm not even sure whether there's any stipulation in the Supreme Court's order that would allow it to go beyond this election.
Because it's predicated on the Supreme Court's emergency authority under the election code.
Second question, do you have a backup plan in case the district judges or the courts prefer not to have the boxes in their offices?
I would think at that point you look at municipal buildings,
Right.
depending on the security of those areas. I think you look at police stations. I think you look at other areas which are owned by the public that have a degree of security, and that's what other counties are doing as well.
I would think that as an order to the Shannick location, that even Wilmington building because it is the only polling place that we have that is actually 100% fully accessible under the ADA. That would also centralize it in the northern part of the county. As far as the southern end, that's a crapshoot. Because once you get outside of Elwood City, there is no population.
There's none.
There's none.
That being said, I think that again, it's a scenario where the price point for me, I'm comfortable with, on a personal level. I think it's a scenario where I think we'll talk to the courts and we'll go from there, I think, if the motion is successful. But any further comments? We have an amendment to vote on first, which is amending, purchasing a drop box, moving the number, which I initially proposed from 3 commissioners to be able to, or proposed to increase that to 4. So we'll call we have a motion second from that. We'll call a vote on that amendment. The questions on the amendment. Susan, please call the roll.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Vogler.
No.
Ms. Spielvogel.
Yes.
All right, and now we have the motion, which is to direct the elections office to move forward with the purchasing of 4 drop boxes. Discussion to continue with possible approval or denial to occur at the next Board of Elections meeting set for next week. That's been motioned and seconded. Questions on the motion, Susan, please.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Yes.
What are we doing next week versus this week?
So this week, the only thing we're doing is approving the purchasing of these 4 drop boxes. That allows us time to look into the questions that were posed here,
Right.
to make an
Right.
informed final decision, which would occur next week.
I appreciate that. And I will add one more thing. I think, and it would be a almost physically impossible thing to do, but I think the only fair way if you're gonna have drop boxes is you have one in each of the municipalities in the county. But again, that would be a very difficult task to accomplish, but it would also be the only fair way to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I would say I would even take that one step further. I would say for absolute fairness, which we don't have right now. I think everybody will acknowledge we don't have that right now. This is just moving closer to absolute fairness. But I would say I wouldn't base it on municipality. I would look at a systems map of the road networks and map out and make sure that within, a certain number of minutes of each voter of each area of the county, there would be a drop box. I would do it based on a systems approach, which we actually have the ability to look at that through GIS, which might be another thing to consider.
You may not have the buildings in which to locate
Right.
those drop boxes.
Sure, but at the same time, I would argue at the county level, the municipal lines have to go away, and we have to look at data. We have to look at density. We have to look at population. We have to
Those
look at
lines
buildings.
cannot go away.
At the county
They're
level,
there.
but at the county level, they can.
No, they can't.
Yes, they
You
can.
cannot change. No, the municipalities are the municipalities. That's not going to change unless the legislature changes it.
No, and I'm not making that point. I'm just saying at the county level, we have to consider much more than just municipal lines. Our duty is to the 85,000 citizens of Lawrence County, not necessarily to ensure fairness to each of those 85,000 citizens. That may or may not be, that may or may not take into account municipal boundary, but municipal boundary should not be the only thing considered at the county level.
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Now that'd be, okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Question on the motion, Susan, please call the roll.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Vogler.
No.
Ms. Spielvogel.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Elections office is authorized to move forward with purchasing of 4 drop boxes. Deployment or not deployment to be decided at a later date, that being next week. Polling place change considerations, and we'll try to go through these expediently because I know you have that appointment.
Elwood City 5-1, we were fortunate enough to use the former Tree of Life Wellness Center that has gone back to the Elwood City hospital system, which is now in bankruptcy. It's no longer available to us. We will inspect Parkside Alliance Church on Thursday at 10 o'clock to check for viability of ADA considerations. And then move at that particular point on a temporary basis to Parkside Alliance. We need to change the name and Shanty
Oh,
Township.
forgive
6.
me, Ed. Parkside Alliance, is that church the one that is near the football field,
Yes.
located within the precinct?
Yes.
Thank you.
We need to change the name of Shanty Township 6 to Grace Methodist as opposed to First.
So
So the
which
the location's not,
The location
Is it-
hasn't changed.
yeah, okay. Change the name. So it was, what was it?
It was
before
First.
Grace?
It was First United Methodist Decker Drive,
Okay, Decker Drive,
Yep.
okay.
and it's now Grace
Now
Methodist.
it's called Grace United Methodist.
Is it United?
Grace United Methodist Ministry.
Got it.
and that's coming from the expert, because that's your church.
Is that your church?
That is my church.
Okay.
Dick, I'm sorry, excuse me. Is
Grace
it Grace Methodist Ministries?
United, Grace United Methodist Ministry.
Thank you.
Okay. North Beaver Township, Bethel Church is being demolished in favor of building a new sanctuary. So we're going to temporarily move to Westfield Presbyterian Church. It is handicap accessible so long as the front door is open for election day in order to take the lift to the lower level.
And Ed, that's the third district,
Yes, sir.
third precinct? Thank you.
Union Township 3 is still going to be voting at Washington Alliance Church in favor of the social distancing requirements that we cannot provide out of people in needs building. We were there in the primary, things worked out very well. And as far as I know right now, even though we may temporarily change the location, every board is full.
Can I, before you leave that Union Township precinct, does that facility on West Washington Street, will it now accommodate both precincts 3 and 4?
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay. No longer people in need
well,
Well, for this one.
for this election.
right.
Okay,
If we get past all the other stuff, we'll go back out to people that need it so that it's within the jurisdiction. And so those are our plans right now. Elwood City 5-1 is pending, and Shanty Township 6, a no-brainer. North Beaver 3 and Union Township 3, I would like the board's approval to make those moves.
Are we having any issues that you can see bubbling up with any poll worker reluctance to man the polls?
No,
great.
That's excellent.
no, we've actually had judges and boards decide to come back and work for the general election that blocked at the primary. So there's a certain comfort level that's beginning to grow.
That's excellent. I'm happy to hear that. But that being said, I will take a motion from one of my colleagues approving the changes to polling sites and the names of polling sites as put forth by the Director of Elections.
So moved.
Second. Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, question on the motion. Susan, please call the roll.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Vogler?
Yes?
Ms. Billvogel?
Yes.
Motion carries. Anything further, Ed?
No, sir.
Anything further from my colleagues? Any additional public comment?
Yeah, I have a couple. Number one, I have seniority as far as being on this earth in this building. So I'm gonna give you a suggestion. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. I'm a member of a 12-step program, and that's one of they have slogans, and that's one of theirs, keep it simple. So you guys dealt with a lot of stuff, and here's the good news to me. I've been to come to these meetings for a long, not these meetings, but meetings here in this room, in this building for a long time. That might be the second time I ever saw a 2-to-1 vote. Usually it was all 3-0, which could be good or bad and whatever, but it's a tough thing. It's election obviously is very important. We got to do what we got to do and keep it simple.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, at this point, Dick, the legislature has not made it a simple process.
Well, so there's a way to work on that too, but that's. we
You can
work
go
toward
beat
it.
on, you can go beat on them all you want, Dick. You have my permission.
Thank you.
Permission, I'd say
Thank you.
encouragement.
I'll take both words. Encourage permission.
All right. Well, seeing no further public comment, we will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, hearing a motion and second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, question on the motion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign, motion carries. Board of Elections will resume, or be called back into session next week after the Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Good seeing you. Take care. Stay safe.
I will.
My goodness.
Just drive along faster.
You'll be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Okay, sorry.
Oh.
Good luck, it's over.
Hey, here's another, I used to work with a youth.
Want to share just for?
No.
We can swing that.
They were saying this, little telling a story.
Maybe if you need.
Thank
you.
Thank you.